Greetings, I'm Brother John. In this particular vid, in this new series of lectures and studies focused upon the Book of Life, the foundation of Jah Word, that basic instruction before liberating Ethiopia. That's right. What is it about Ethiopia, the African Zion, to this present day, despite the corruption going on? But in this past century, the victory of Ethiopia, the only true Judeo-Christian nation on this planet, the only nation in Mother Africa that has never been colonized. So what is it about holy Ethiopia, the African Zion upon earth? What is it that allowed Ethiopia to have victory over Mussolini and the Axis powers back in World War II this past century under reign of His Imperial Majesty, the King of Kings? That was a big part of it. But even going back to the First World War and previous wars of Ethiopia, being victorious over their enemies in that physical battle, as well as spiritual warfare. Why? Because as a nation, as a collective whole, Ethiopia, the only true Judeo-Christian nation upon this earth, as a collective whole, not in general as far as religions and other movements across the face of the earth, but I'm talking about a nation as a collective whole, a majority. That original Tewahedo faith, that hidden kingdom of David, that blood lineage of Solomon, the Queen of Sheba, Menelik, from Israel to Ethiopia, containing the Ark of the Covenant, Ethiopian Hebrews and Falashan Ethiopians, receiving that message in the book of Acts chapter 8. The Ethiopian eunuch came across the apostle Philip and brought the message of Yeshua, the Messiah of Jesus Christos, back to holy Ethiopia with those original Judaic and Hebraic roots. This Ethiopian was a Hebrew himself, making his pilgrimage to the traditional promised land of Israel on the road of Damascus. So you have the connection right there in the Bible, in connection with ancient Ethiopia. So Ethiopia was victorious over Mussolini in that portion of the Axis powers in that time. A nation who keeps the commandments of Exyabihir, of Yahweh, and holds the true testimony of Jesus Christos, the true testimony of Yehoshua HaMashiach, the Son. So we compare that to the original Hebrew Israelites of ancient times, throughout the Bible, throughout the Torah, and the ancient prophets, to the sacred writings, and to the Brit Hadashah or Hadith Kedan of the Messiah. But especially from that original Torah foundation, the victories of the Israelites, Yah's chosen people, our spiritual ancestors through Moshiyah or through Christ, victorious over their enemies when they kept the commandments of Yahweh, of Ahaya, the sustainer, of the one true Elohim, of Israel and of all creation. When they are obedient to Yah's word, to His decrees, to His commandments. The original Hebrew Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel, were unstoppable. No nation upon this earth could defeat them in physical battle, not even the race of giants and the Philistines, descendants of the fallen angels. You see, so is it today, in a more spiritual based covenant through Yeshua, through Christ. People of all nations, not just the original seed of Israel, the Ethiopian Hebrews, and other black Israelites and Hispanics, and Native Indians and the other 12 tribes. But all nations, both Israelite and Gentile, all nations, grafted in through Yeshua, through the Messiah, born again and spiritually adopted and grafted into Yahweh's kingdom, to receive that message. Now, what is the importance of Yeshua the Messiah, despite a substitute, or a so-called substitute sacrifice, being the sacrificial lamb himself, crucified upon the cross at Calvary, outside of Jerusalem and Israel, for all humanity and all generations? That substitute sacrifice, but also in conquering death and that resurrection and victory, spiritual death, going back to the original curse of all humanity and all so-called races, black, white, brown, yellow, Hebrew, Israelite, Jew, Gentile, come from one Adam, that Ha-Adam, the original man. There's connections with the Asiatic roots, but it goes back to Mother Africa and Ethiopia, the ancient land of Tobia, the Ha-Adam, the Afar. As we know, Adam and Ha-Adam and Eve, the first man and woman. It's right there in that Torah foundation, the book of Genesis, as we all know. And in the beginning, when Yahweh, the sustainer, when Ahaya, when Ha-Elohim created the heavens, the celestials throughout this vast universe, the many different dimensions throughout this universe, and then this whole physical realm on this earth. And he allowed a special heavenly paradise right here on this blessed earth, in that garden, that traditional Garden of Eden, or Garden of Paradise. And in a spiritual sense, or a metaphysical sense, heaven was right here on earth. There was no need for this or that. There was no death. There was no sin. There was no wickedness, corruption, sickness, pain, jealousy, envy. But the tree of knowledge, knowing good and evil, that symbolic format of man's falling away, being deceived by the fallen ones, by the Hasatan himself. So that's where you get into other connections with the book of Genesis and the Torah foundation, along with the book of the Apocrypha, the lost books, and the book of Enoch. We'll get into that in due time, but the foundation goes back to what broke that curse. And of course, Yahweh's salvation for the Israelites and the Old Covenant and the Tabernacle was relevant for them. And so the New Covenant, the Brit Hadashah, bring us the royal law, still goes back to that foundation of the commandments given to Moses from Mount Sinai. And no longer do we sacrifice animals, but came back to break that original curse of all humanity, which was death. Yahweh Eloheinu took upon the flesh as God the Son incarnate, the Son of Man and Son of God, or Son of Elohim, that we know as Yeshua, or Jesus Christ, in that first advent. To take upon the flesh, the tainted flesh of sin, of all man, woman, and child, and break that curse of wickedness and sin for all humanity in that resurrection. Give us a spiritual covenant. So through him, through his love and salvation, we do our part to work at our own salvation. Through Yah's grace. Amen.